we fight for the family with like passion if we don't realize the importance ourselves. So I think it's really important to know it. There's just so many threats to the family, and like people need to know, like we're losing sight of what's important. So yeah, I thought that just to have conviction, we have to like really know the doctrine.
I agree. There was one part in the movie where his friend was like, is that the preacher man talking in your head, or is it the politician man talking in your head? And I think sometimes we have those moments where we're like, oh man, do I really want to put myself out there? Am I really willing to have the courage to say what I need to say? But I think after, I know that after this class, I feel so much more confident in how I would have those conversations. Because I don't think, I mean, before this class, I've had moments where I've stood up and defended the family, but this class has made me feel so much more like confident.
Oh yeah, I've like never been one to like go on Facebook and post things. Like I'm just always afraid that I'm gonna get like questions that I don't know how to answer. But now that I like know more, I do feel more confident. So
Yeah, it's scary.
It is scary.
All right, so that was a good one. Here's the other question. How did Wilbur employ theoretical Bronfenbrenner approach to become a more effective advocate? Identify at least one thing in each system and be specific. So in the microsystem, I said that he started implementing his beliefs in his own home. And that was kind of like the poor people parts where he was like bringing them inside his house and feeding them. That was the one that I gave. I was kind of struggling with that one.
Yeah, I was struggling with like the whole thing. I'm like, I never know what to say. But I just said I wasn't sure if I was like right on any of these, but because this model's always confused me. But I said about like how he always had like family and friends that were like supporting him. Like, yeah, so his wife was like always encouraging him and stuff like that. So that's what I said.
Yeah, no, I like that better than mine, actually. The meso system, and that was like when you're working within a community. And that's when he was in the meeting house with all of his like friends that wanted to form the group to abolish slavery, when they were meeting together. It's like, that was a meso system to me. I don't know.
That's ecosystem, is that what you said?
The meso?
Oh, mesosex system? I don't know what it is. Is it meso or miso? I don't know. Anyway. I don't know. I just said Wilbur and his friends got the community together to support one cause. So yeah, that would be the abolition of slavery. So that's what you said.
Okay. Woo! And then for exosystem, I said that. So when they were meeting together, they're like, what are some things that we can do? And he was like, well, maybe we should start singing songs about how we need to abolish slavery, or maybe we should write stories in the paper or stuff like that. And I figured that was kind of like the exosystem could be the media that they were trying to push their agenda through. I don't know. That was hard for me.
Yeah, that's good. I talked about how like Wilbur and the other advocates, they like shared personal stories about slavery, but they weren't actually like involved in them. So that's kind of what I said. And it like affected them, but yeah.
Okay. Woo! Okay, I was like, sharing stories? I don't know. And then the macro system was easy for me because he tried proposing bills in Parliament. Yeah. That was the government thing, the larger system.
Yeah, I
And
talk about politics and that kind of stuff. Religion, my partly. So
oh yeah, that's right.
yeah.
And then the chrono system. I didn't know if we had to do the chrono system part, but
I did it.
You did?
Mhm.
What did you say?
I don't know. The Chrono system talks a lot about like the future and stuff. So I kind of just talked about how like him advocating affects the future.
Okay.
But I was kind of confused about it all.
Yeah, I was confused too. And there was one quote that the preacher, like his preacher friend that said he was like living with ghosts.
Yeah.
Can you imagine playing a blind person? That would be so hard. But he said God sometimes does his work with a gentle drizzle, not storms.
Oh, I remember that. I wrote that down.
Yeah, Ashley's are connected.
Yeah.
So that's what I said, because Chrono System, it does take time, and it definitely took time for him to get to that point to abolish it. So that's what I said.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where when I'm doing the advocacy too, I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna be able to affect anything. I'm just like one person. But like what that said is like it's true. It just happens, but every little thing helps. So
Yeah, I think this class has like when I'm done with school, I really want to like join something to like help be involved. But with school and work, there's no way. Yeah. Okay, so we like nailed that on the head.
Yeah, we did.
The third one is, how did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? And I said, not only did they do very thorough research, they found the testimonies of slavers, the slaves, and the sailors who worked in Africa or at the docks or on the ships. They actually investigated the ships. They gathered maps and actual evidence like the shackles. The long petition of names that he rolled out on the floor was also impressive.
That was impressive.
That's what I said. What did you say?
I pretty much just said the same thing. I said they got personal accounts they got from the writers on the ships, the doctors who cared for the passengers, and then like the actual slaves of their stories being like whipped and mistreated. And then the other ways that they did were like showing the chains that held the slaves. And then also like that one time when they brought everyone to that ship.
Yeah.
The evidence. And like even when, and then when they did that box, he made that practical demonstration box to show like what the slaves had to endure when they were on the ship, like where they were held. So I thought that was some evidence. So
yeah. That would have been horrible. Like I had to watch when I took a class at a local community college. It was a history class. And we started talking about the slaves, and we had to watch the movie called The Amistad, which was a slave ship. And they showed people like in shackles who were sick and then throwing them off the ship. And I was like, I gotta go. This is like too emotional. Oh.
That's so sad. I can't even imagine.
Right? Oh my
God. Anyone could think that was right, you know? It just blows my mind.
I know. I'm so glad I don't ever have to answer to God for that.
Seriously.
Okay. So the next question is, how does the film portray the importance of working together as a group? What has family advocacy group work taught you? What did you say?
Well, they worked a lot as a group in the movie. I felt like they were supporting each other, and I think it's because they were all working together that they were able to find like all that evidence. I don't think just if he would have been doing it by himself, he wouldn't have been able to find as much like all on his own. And I feel like with more people on their side, it makes a stronger argument. So yeah. And then like I talked about how, let's see, in class, what did I write about that? I don't know. I just talked about personal experience of like when, you know how we did that page about one of the topics, like that web page or do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, like on Facebook?
Group. Yeah, I talked about that and how like it was just so much better when like a bunch of us got together and do it instead of like just me making a page, when everyone collaborated and put lots of information, and it just made it more, the argument stronger.
Yeah. I was so nervous for that project because I'm definitely like, I can do it. I'm more than capable. Like, don't everybody screw it up.
How'd it go? Did you guys do good?
We got an 88% on it.
Oh, really?
So it was like, we didn't have any articles or anything like research stuff, like scientific articles or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but we didn't have any of that. So that was the one that got us.
Did you do a Facebook page or what'd you do? A blog?
We did a Facebook page.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But it was still fun. Like, it was eye-opening. But and then for my answer, I said that networking is really important in family advocacy work. And like each week, I've noticed like throughout this whole course is that we've had example after example of people like networking, because we saw the people at the UN. We had that one, they were really long chapters, but they were good. It was the policy making one.
Oh, yeah.
Where the group brought the social scientists and the policymakers together. Those were long reads, but they were good. And then, what else did I say? And then there was one quote from class that I wrote in my journal, and it was from one of the articles that we read one week, and it said, "Families do a better job of promoting competence and character in their members when they can count on the context outside of their home. As families, we need to speak up about programs, organizations, or policies that can help support our family efforts. All families and society at large are affected by the changes that are made in this fundamental unit, and that we must work together." So it really all depends on us when we come together. So that's what I said.
No, that's really good. I just think that more people are likely to listen to, a bunch instead of just one. So.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever go to the UN?
Would I ever go there?
Yeah. Like, would you?
No.
I just want to like go there and sit and watch. I don't want to like.
I don't think I'd want to be like in it,
Okay, let's see. What parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni in Alma 46? What is a Christian and a professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? How can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices? What did you say?
Okay, so I really liked this one. I saw like lots of parallels. I like to do this for some reason.
Yeah.
I would say that Malachi was the opposing side of Wilbur's argument. There were people who didn't understand the truth and they were being led astray. And then in verse 5 of Alma, it said, "And they had been led by the flatteries of Malachi." And I think this like describes politics so well. I mean, they're very convincing people and they can change the minds of a lot of people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then I said I'd compare Wilbur to Moroni, because just like Moroni, Wilbur learned about what was happening and the wickedness that was occurring, and he decided to stand up and share his beliefs. In the account about my Moroni said, or he didn't say, he did this, "Rent his coat, and he took a piece thereof and wrote upon it, in memory of our God, our religion and freedom, and our peace, our wives and our children. And he fastened it upon the end of a pole." So like in this verse, we find that Moroni is like reminding the people of the importance of family And like, so they're pretty much fighting for the same thing. They're both courageous, both change the minds and hearts of people.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I said. There was a line in the movie where he was like on the floor, Wilbur was, and he was arguing with the guy, whoever it was, and he goes, "No matter how loud you shout, you will not drown out the voice of the people." And I said, I think that is very similar to Captain Moroni, and Moroni did not want the voice of the people to go unheard, so that's why he made the title of Liberty, so that others could gather around him and make their voices heard. So that's how I said he was like Captain Moroni. And I said that he was a Christian and a professional advocate because his beliefs of God dictated his advocacy work. He knew many people would disregard him because of his religious beliefs, which caused him to work so hard in gathering factual evidence. When we read the book, A Sacred Duty, it was much the same as Wilbur. In my journal, I wrote, "What is so great about defending truth is that you will always find evidence to support it. Reason and revelation can go together when the doctrine is true." And I remember that week because when that one guy went to the UN and he had that family proclamation and he was like, "Okay, how can we reword this so that people can say yes to it?" And a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, if you mention religion, they're not going to listen. But if you kind of like put it in different terms, they'll listen. But we don't ever have to change our religious beliefs, and we don't ever have to only rely on research. I mean, revelation will help us find the research to support it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think I explained it right.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's better than I just talked about how his religious beliefs would made him take action and stand up like he did. So.
Nice. Yeah, and then the last question, how can we be effective in Christ-like? I said we can do that by remaining as faithful disciples. When we were in our group hangouts one day, we were discussing what we could do to be better. And someone brought up to keep the Sabbath day holy. And we were talking about how, like in general conference last time, and like the theme was like Sabbath day holy, keeping the Sabbath day holy. And I read a talk not too long ago that said, yes, this is an actual push that the leaders are doing to try to remind us how important the Sabbath day is. And I think we don't really realize how important it is, because when we are keeping the Sabbath day holy, the Lord is promising us to have his Spirit to be with us. And when we have his Spirit to be with us, we can have that knowledge of what we need to say or what we need to do. And that one book, that Sacred Duty book, I love that book because I don't know if I were that guy, if I would have gone. And the only reason why he made things happen was because he had the Spirit of God with him.
Oh, yeah. We can't get as far without the Spirit. I know. I took a parenting class this last semester, and we had to teach a lot. And I'm like, I don't think I could have done it without the Spirit. Like, seriously. But, yeah. I just said take action. There's the voices of the loud of the world that are loud and really convincing, but that just means that we have to stand up more and take action.
Absolutely. Now I feel more motivated, especially after this class, to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So Marcia Barlow spoke on persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbur and others exemplify any of Marcia's ideas? How so? What did you say?
All right. So she talked about using narratives, which he kind of did when he talked about like the stories of like the slaves and stuff, and like personal accounts to really connect with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped his argument, I thought. And then I said he used humor and he sang that one song. And that time when he sang the song, you just like watched, like everyone went like silent, like the whole audience just like was quiet. And so like he had their full attention. And so when I think that people do things like that, like I think it was this class when we watched the 2 videos of the 2 boys who were talking about an issue, and like there was one who like was more into it and he used humor, and I was more interested in that one than I was the other one. And so yeah, I talked about that, just like gaining the attention of the audience. He was really good at that. And then I said that he like stood up and he was confident, and like and you could tell that he was passionate about what he was doing. And then she talked about the story of now, like calling people to action, which he definitely did.
Yeah. I talked about how he was that Chip the Madagascar, when he was like telling people, he's like, smell that smell. I was like, that's a powerful thing to say, and that really like engaged them. And so I shared that example. And then I shared a lot of things from my journals because I couldn't ever remember what weeks we went through everything.
Yeah.
But after we watched that week of her telling how to give a speech, I said, I learned what the art of effective communicating is, and that I definitely need to practice. I think it really is a talent to condense a subject while spewing facts and making it relatable. If you think about it, a testimony is just that. Some of the most memorable testimonies in church I have are of those short and powerful ones. I also like how the United Families Organization videos, because they made, how do I word this? They made it, when I was watching those women talk, like give their backgrounds and how they got involved, I was like, wow, family advocate is actually like attainable. Like I could do this if I really wanted to, and it's possible. And so right now I don't see myself speaking in front of like a board or anything, but I mean, I can do it if I really wanted to. And so I thought that was cool that we learned it that week.
Yeah.
But I do remember those 2 boys. Oh, the first one was so painful. Okay.
Oh, it was so bad. Other things I talked about was like that he did his research and he was prepared. Like that really helped him. And like in the fact that he like recognized other people's views, instead of just like saying his and being disrespectful, he actually like recognized theirs and was respectful. So that's
right. He did do that. I was also like working at my job while I was like watching a movie. I was like, he did do that. Okay.
It was hard to find time to sit down for 2 hours and watch that. I was just like, no.
I thought it was like 2 hours.
I'm glad they had that little romance in it to make it a little more.
She was a pretty redhead. Oh my goodness, she was gorgeous.
She was.
So what role did the government policy and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? And I kind of struggled with this one because I said that the government was, quote unquote, based on religious principles. And it was interesting to see how many people that were there considered themselves religious despite all of the policies for slavery. That was just mind-boggling. Because if you're a really true convert to, have, the gospel, then you'd think that would not mesh, but whatever. But I said the policies did have effect on the slave trade because the income that the nation was receiving from the slave trade. So they were all intertwined. And I said the nation received much profit from the slave trade through the sugar industry and the coffee bean industry. if they were to push policies to abolish this industry, everyone would have been affected. Businesses, people who owned their share in that industry, pretty much everyone would have been affected by it. And I think that the question that said, did you see their political system being pro-family? I really struggled with that one because I honestly think that they did have a different definition of being pro-family. I think in their minds they believed that slavery was helping them, you know, to be a little bit freer. They could enjoy certain activities. You know, it was their livelihood. It was their income, even if it was on the backs of slaves. And so I think they were thinking, oh, slavery is being pro-family because I can do all of these things. But it's a really twisted notion. And so I would have to say, no, it wasn't being pro-family, because look at all the families that they ruined by importing all of those slaves. Like, so obviously they weren't, but
yeah, they were pro-family for themselves.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not doing a really good job explaining this, but.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely what I said. I said that they were kind of pro-family, but they were thinking about themselves instead of the other families that they were like breaking up. So it's kind of like, what do you do? That's kind of a hard situation, you know? But obviously they didn't do the right thing. But and I said, I don't think the government was like too much involved until like later, because there weren't enough people. So I feel like the government didn't do that much until like obviously they were, I don't know. I didn't know what to really say other than
yeah, it was like, that's a really hard question. And it was interesting to see, like, you know, towards the end when they got back together and they're like, okay, what is our strategy this time? Because we really can't fail. And the guy's like, we cheat. And I was like, you know, that's what our opposition does all the time, is that they cheat. And, you know, how do I feel about going around this, you know, maneuvering around the loopholes just to get my position out in the open? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Okay. You feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well. How did you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of? What did you say for this one?
So I said that he did use his time on Earth well. In Elder Christofferson's talk, his main points were that we have freedom to make our own choices and that we need to make good use of our time. And I actually said a quote here. Let me read it. True success in this life comes in consecrating our lives, that is, our time and choices, to God's purposes. And that our eternal reward is according to our choosing. And then I said in the scriptures, it talked about men are that they might have joy. And then Elder Christofferson says, in order for us to find this happiness in life, then we must live a life dedicated to service and love and harmony and like that kind of stuff. So, and then he mentioned the 5 elements of a consecrated life, which were purity, work, respect for one's physical body, service, and integrity. Yeah, and I definitely saw Wilbur and his others following these elements. So
that's exactly what I said. I was like, here are the principles he listed in his talk. Mm-hmm. And this is how Wilbur exemplified them. And yeah, you said it way better than I did. But there was some quotes, like, so after I watched the movie, I actually got onto Google and I started like looking Wilbur up, because I had never heard of this guy.
I never heard of him. Never.
Yeah, like I would have thought that in my history class in like in the local community college, I would have heard about it, you know, about him. But anyway, so I looked at some of his writings, And a lot of the things that he said in his writings or what he's like famous for, like quotes wise, like mirrored exactly to what Elder Christofferson was saying. It was crazy. Like I'll have to, let me scroll up here. One thing he said was, "It is the true duty of every man to promote the happiness of his fellow creatures to the utmost of his power. A private faith that does not act in oppression is no faith at all." And I thought that was kind of like what Elder Christofferson had said, like when he was talking about respecting others and all that stuff. So that's what I said.
Yeah, and some of the elements like work, like he spent his whole life working. I mean, he made himself sick because he was working so much.
So hard.
Like his like whole life was just service. So
I was really confused. Like, was it a drug or was it actually medicine that was helping him?
I think it was medicine that was helping but he got addicted to it.
Okay, I was getting really confused. I was like, is he? I don't know. It was confusing to me.
And I think he was like trying to get off of it, so he wasn't addicted anymore.
Okay. Like when he like fell down and he was crying and he was like holding his wife's tummy, I was like, wait. What's going on? Is he cray-cray right now?
Kind
of cray-cray.
Too, but then I was like, to be honest, I went on Wikipedia and looked it up because they said I was like, I wonder like if he was like sick because of everything or he actually had like a disease, and he actually had a disease.
Okay, I was so confused.
No, it was like some stomach thing. I looked it up. It was some colon thing that he had. So it was actually sick, not just like he was sick because he was tired,
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. So do you have any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy?
I just talked about how I feel like it's interesting how people listen more when it's about families. I think that most people they think that family is important, and I feel like it's a really sensitive subject, and I think that there's still a lot of people that care about families.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Even the ones that come from like bad, family, like everyone really wants that for themselves. So, yeah, I agree with you. There was one quote, I think it was his best friend that said, Wilbur's best friend that said this quote, but he said that when people speak of great men, they think of men like Napoleon, men of violence. Rarely do they think of peaceful men. But contrast the reception they will receive when they return home from their battles. Napoleon will arrive in pomp and in power, a man who's achieved the very summit of earthly ambition, and yet his dreams will be haunted by the oppressions of war. William Wilberforce, however, will return to his family, lay his head on his pillow, and remember that the slave trade is no more. And I really like that quote because when I observe politicians or some people in different groups that they're advocating for, they're really wanting to be remembered for something big. They're kind of looking for like the praises of the world. And I think as advocates, we need to remember that, I mean, as advocates, I think we really want that moment as well. We really want to have that aha moment where everybody gets it and everybody's like, yeah, I'll sign right on. But I think that we need to come back down and realize that the Savior never really wanted worldly attention. And he influenced so many people because of how he taught and defended the gospel. And rarely do we think of peaceful men, but God does, and that reward is way better than that earthly recognition. That's why.
I like that.
Okay, we're almost done.
Dang. This is the end of the class.
Okay, what was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester, and how has it changed?
Okay, well, like we've said, like I didn't like before this, I really wasn't big into advocacy, like, and then so I've actually learned like the importance of standing up for what I believe in, you know, and then and going back to Sister Beck's talk, the world is like really changing in the definition of family is like, and so people seem to be forgetting about it. And I've just learned that we need to take action. So pretty much just what I've said before.
I said the exact same thing. The proclamation at the bottom where it says we call all citizens everywhere. I was like, after this class, I've gained a greater desire to want to be that, you know, inspired, motivated person to defend the family. And I have gained you know, in my previous classes, you know, marriage and family, like they were good classes, but this class has really like pushed me to really act on what I've learned, you know, and so yeah, I've gained a greater testimony of the plan of salvation, because the plan of salvation really begins and it really ends with family. And I just feel so much more confident, like I said earlier, that I can say something, you know, to other people, start those conversations. Okay, so is the spouse and children the last question?
Yes.
Oh.
Wait, I think, yep.
Yep. Okay. What did you say for that one?
Okay, so I just wrote down some of the things I would teach them. So I said I teach them the importance of family. From this, I've learned to ask, seek, and knock for more knowledge and understanding, which I forget what that was from. I think it was Elder Holland who said that.
Okay.
And I know that I can like, the Spirit will always help me when I need it, as long as I ask, if I pray and stuff. And then I like a better understanding of a lot of the threats that are against the family these days. You know how we had that, like, you know, all those family threats and everyone had their own. And I just learned more about that. And then I learned to have more confidence, and then that it's better to work with others most of the time. And then I've really never been like into politics, and so I've really kind of learned the importance of like staying educated and like know what's happening. So probably need to look at the news more or whatever. But
yeah.
and I just think everything I've learned will help me to be a better mother for my children and wife.
Yeah. I said those same things, like they would learn to love the gospel more, and that they would have a deeper testimony of the plan of salvation, and that they'll be motivated to share their testimonies in short yet powerful statements. I think that was a really big thing that I learned this semester. It was so funny because we were supposed to write like a persuasive article or speech or something, essay, and then we went over like the techniques, and the week after that, and then we had to write another persuasive essay again.
Yeah.
Just to see how different you know, what our writing was after. And I remember I did all of the no-nos that she said. You know, I was saying people need to have morals and blah, 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 blah. And then we went through her speech, you know, what makes a good speech. I'm like, well, I basically should have gotten an F for that speech. It was terrible. But so I learned a lot there. And then I said, just because society hardly respects religion does not mean that they have to check it at the door. They can still continue to live and lead life with faith. And Sister Dalton, in one of the talks that we read from her this semester, she said, a virtuous man, young man or a woman armed with the Spirit can change the world. So we just have to remind ourselves that we do have the potential to influence those who are around us, and that we can change the world if we are always relying on the Spirit to do that. So that's what I said.
Very good.
Woo! Yay, we're done.
Yay.
So do you want
discussion?
Yeah, we did. It was what, 45 minutes?
Yeah, which is what
not
you're supposed to have, right?
Yeah,
Sweet.
we did. So do you want me to just email you the link?
Yeah, sure. Am I supposed to post it or something, or only one of us has to do that, or what?
I don't know. So I was like, well, maybe. So that's why I was like, maybe I'll just send you the link. So, because I think you'll actually put it, because we'll have to do like a peer review of each other, and I think that's where you can like copy and paste it in the comment section.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being so awesome.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for setting it up.
Yeah, no worries. Well, you have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Bye.